My employer is sending me to Africa, Uganda to be exact, and asked if I'd like to take a week's vacation to explore the country. Naturally, I said yes. First thing is to research the visa requirements. I send in my visa application, 2 photos, my passport, and a check for $50 to the Ugandan embassy in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks later, I get my tourist visa, valid for 3 months. Next, I read the U.S. State Department's travel advisory on Uganda, and I'm a bit concerned to read the Lord's Resistance Army is still active in northern Uganda. Most important is reading the CDC's travel advisories and getting the recommended vaccinations. To learn more about the country, I read the CIA's fact book and Wikipedia. To find a tour guide, I research the web and find an organization called the Association of Ugandan Tour Operators. I look through their extensive membership list, reading many of the operators' profiles and contacting them via email about payment options. To further narrow down my search, I read the operator's webpage, choosing Escape Tours and Safaris because of the responsiveness to my email questions and accommodation to my videographic needs. Having traveled to remote places many times, I've learned the importance of creating an equipment list and started the process of packing my gear. Most important of all is organizing my cameras and doing a video and audio check of the equipment and making sure it functions properly. I double-check my immunization sheet and vaccination requirements. Uganda is in the middle of the malaria hot zone, so my doctor prescribed a 3-week dose of malarone, which has few, if any, side effects. I fly 3 hours from Dallas to Chicago and have a 2-hour layover, then fly 10 hours to Brussels and have a 4-hour layover, then fly 10 hours to Kibale with a 2-hour layover, then fly 2 hours to Entebbe. I look out the window and see nothing but sand, then look at the on-air map and see we are in the middle of the Sahara over the Sudan. A bit later, I look out the window again and see a river in the desert. There is no doubt, it's the Blue Nile.
Well, if I look a little worse for wear, it's because I've been on the road now for about 27 hours. I've been in Dallas, flew 2-hour layover in Dallas, flew to Chicago, that was 2 hours, had a 2-hour layover in Chicago, then flew to Brussels for 8 hours, had a 2-hour layover there, then flew to, from Brussels to Kibale, which is another 8 hours. I'm on the tarmac now, it's 1-hour layover, and another 2 hours to Entebbe.
It's around midnight when I arrive at my mystery hotel. I have some concerns about staying here as the doorman is carrying an AK-47. The sheets in the bathroom are clean, and all I want to do now is sleep. But before I can do that, I need to pop my malarone and wash it down with some local beer. Having no curtains on the windows, I wake up at sunrise. I head outside to get my bearings and see the name of the hotel I'm staying at. It's a nice place with individual bungalows and an outdoor dining room. I sit down for breakfast and hear a screech. I look up and see a huge bird in a nest. It's a stork, and they're everywhere, like pigeons. My breakfast choice is between a continental and a porter. It's a no-brainer. Since it's Sunday, I don't have to work. I read through the Eye magazine and plan out my day. I decide on the botanical gardens as the waiter says they're within walking distance and worth seeing. I hire a guide who walks me from tree to tree and tells me their name and medicinal purposes. This is an umbrella tree, and it becomes obvious why it's called an umbrella tree when you stand under it. The cannonball tree produces a beautiful and fragrant flower that is pollinated by fruit bats and then produces a fruit the size and weight of a cannonball. What type of spider is it?
Golden orb spider.
Golden orb.
Yeah, they feed on butterflies, they feed on dragonflies.
This is a termitaria, or termite mound. It is built high above the ground so the sun will heat it and cause a convection draft, circulating air and controlling temperature and humidity for the termites' fungal gardens. I reached the goal of my quest, the shores of the source of the Nile, the biggest lake in Africa, Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria, renowned for its aquatic biodiversity, is the source of a fishing industry which relies on a non-native species of Nile tilapia, which when introduced in 1954 devastated the lake's ecosystem. These fishermen are using an illegal fishing technique to scare fish into their nets. A common sight along the freshwater lakes in Africa, the African fish eagle ranges from the Sudan to the country of South Africa. I find a small and hidden passage into the jungle and discover an oasis of tranquility and serenity. The park's rainforest formed the backdrop to the 1940s Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan films. The kingfisher, which live in both woodland and wetland habitats, hunt small fish by diving into the water. They see well both in the air and underwater as their eyes have evolved an egg-shaped lens able to focus in two different environments. My guide is eager to show me how Tarzan swung from vines and demonstrates the proper technique. The name colobus is derived from the Greek word for mutilated, because unlike other monkeys, colobus don't have thumbs. And that is a, one more time? And these are soldier ants, and they bite really hard. So if I see them, run away.
Yeah, don't step on them.
Don't step on them. Wow.
Behind me is Lake Victoria, the second biggest lake in the world. After the first biggest lake is Lake Huron, but this is the second. And this is also the source of the Nile. The waters flow from here up down Uganda, through the Sudan, through Egypt, and finally into the Mediterranean.
I got lost trying to find my way back to the hotel and walked for an hour looking for a recognizable landmark. I find one, a billboard for club beer. When I finally get back to the hotel, I order a beer.